According to this teaching, this can be done consciously. The first step is simple. Take a glass of ordinary water. Then hold it with both hands, feeling the contact, the heat being transferred. This gesture already creates a connection. Next, calm yourself for a moment. You don't need to stop your thoughts. Just observe them from a slight distance. Then, whisper the 3 words to the water. It doesn't need to be out loud. Even the breath is enough. Pause between them, feeling the meaning of each one. After that, drink slowly, paying attention to the experience. It may seem too simple, and that's normal. The mind tends to value what is complex, but many profound teachings are precisely the simplest ones. An inner voice may also arise saying that this doesn't make sense or can be left for later. Instead of fighting it, just observe it and continue anyway. You may not feel anything immediately, or maybe you will. Over time, subtle changes may appear. A greater sense of calm, more presence, a different perception when drinking water. Gradually, something that was once automatic becomes conscious, and this can expand to other everyday experiences. For now, the proposal is simple, to experiment. And while you were reading this, perhaps something felt familiar, a sensation difficult to explain, but that somehow you recognize. From this point on, what begins to take shape is not just an isolated practice, but a gradual change in the way you relate to something extremely common and present in your everyday life, because water ceases to be merely an automatic element within your routine and begins to occupy a space of attention, intention, and awareness that simply did not exist before. And it is precisely there that many people begin to realize that only reveals itself over time and with repetition, not as a rigid or mandatory ritual, but as a gesture that becomes natural, almost intuitive, as if the body begins to recognize something that has always been there, but had never truly been noticed. With continuity, you may notice that it is not necessary to create a perfect environment or wait for ideal conditions to practice, because the true value lies in its simplicity and in the possibility of doing it anywhere, at any time, without depending on anyone but yourself. And in a way, this restores a sense of autonomy that is often forgotten, as if something that seemed external had actually always been available within. And even if on some days you forget, or do it mechanically, that is also part of the process, because it is not about perfection, but about returning, remembering again, and starting over without judgment, like a continuous movement that does not require rigidity, only the willingness to keep going. Gradually, this practice may stop being something you do and become something you are, not in the sense of identity, but as a state that manifests naturally, without effort, as if what once needed to be remembered is now present on its own. And at that point, the act of drinking water is no longer just a habit, but a moment of connection, not with something external or distant, but with what has always been there, silent, simply waiting to be noticed. From this deeper understanding, what begins to reveal itself is not just a symbolic practice or a curious habit, but a quiet and continuous shift in the way you position yourself in relation to life itself. Because when we speak of whispering words to water with the intention of making it sacred, what is truly at stake is not the water itself, but the level of presence you are able to sustain in that moment. And this presence, when it becomes more stable, begins to influence not only that specific moment, but the entire way you perceive, feel, and respond to the world around you, as if something within you stops operating on autopilot and begins to respond in a more conscious, more integrated, and less fragmented way. And the more you allow yourself to remain in this state, the more evident it becomes that most everyday actions happen without any real attention, as if they were merely conditioned repetitions of old patterns, and that is precisely why such a simple practice can have such a significant impact, because it interrupts this automatic flow for a brief moment and creates a space where something new can emerge, not as an idea or a concept, but as a direct experience that takes place in the body, in the breath, and in the way you connect with the present moment. And this kind of experience does not need explanation to be valid, because it sustains itself. As you continue with this practice, you may begin to notice that the simple act of holding the glass with both hands already causes a shift in your perception, as if this gesture creates a kind of anchoring in the present, making you more aware of your own body, the contact of your hands, the temperature, the weight, and these details, which previously went completely unnoticed, begin to take on an importance that is not intellectual, but sensory, as if you were rediscovering something basic that has always been there, but had never truly been observed with attention. And in this state of heightened sensitivity, the words you whisper cease to be just sounds and begin to carry a clearer, more defined intention, because you are no longer repeating something mechanically, but expressing something that is being felt in that moment. And this difference is fundamental, because it is what transforms the practice into something alive, something that truly has an impact, rather than an empty repetition that could be replaced by anything else without changing the result. Over time, this practice may begin to influence even the way you relate to silence, because by creating these small moments of pause throughout the day, you become familiar with a kind of stillness that does not depend on the absence of sound, but on the absence of inner agitation, and this stillness, when it becomes more accessible, begins to manifest in other moments, such as when waking up, walking, or even in situations that previously generated anxiety or haste, creating a sense of stability that does not need to be forced, but arises naturally from the repetition of this state. And it is at this point that many people begin to realize that the practice is not limited to the moment of drinking water, but expands into a different way of living, where each action, no matter how simple, can become an opportunity for presence. And this does not mean that you need to be attentive all the time, but that there is the possibility of returning to this state whenever you remember, whenever you feel it, whenever there is an opening for it. And this constant returning, even if imperfect, is already enough to create a gradual yet consistent change. At the same time, this practice may also bring a clearer perception of your own mental patterns, because by slowing down for a few moments, you begin to notice more easily the thoughts that arise, the recurring worries, and the automatic reactions that previously went unnoticed. And this observation, when done without judgment, is already enough to create a certain distance, as if you were no longer completely immersed in these contents, but able to see them from the outside, still present, but with less power over you. And this change, as small as it may seem, has a profound impact on the way you live, because it reduces the intensity of impulsive reactions and increases your ability to respond more consciously, creating a space between stimulus and response that did not exist before. And it is within this space that the possibility of choice arises, not as a constant effort, but as a natural consequence of being more present. Over time, you may also begin to notice a change in the way you relate to your own body, because what was once ignored or only perceived when there was discomfort begins to be noticed more continuously, such as your breathing, your posture, accumulated tension, and this more refined awareness allows small adjustments to happen spontaneously, without the need for conscious intervention, as if the body begins to self-regulate once it is truly felt. And as this sensitivity increases, the experience of drinking water can become surprisingly different, not because the water itself has objectively changed, but because the way you perceive it has transformed, and this shift in perception is enough to completely alter the experience, making something so ordinary feel more alive, more present, and even more meaningful, as if each sip carries not only a physical function, but also a moment of connection. And it is precisely this connection that begins to expand into other areas of your life, because by experiencing this state in such a simple context, you begin to recognize that it can be accessed in any situation, regardless of what is happening around you, and this creates a sense of autonomy that does not depend on external conditions, but on your ability to return to this state whenever you choose. With continued practice, it stops being something you have to remember to do and becomes a natural part of your day, like a gesture that arises spontaneously, without effort, without obligation, simply as an expression of something that is already present within you. And at this point, the act of whispering words to the water is no longer the main focus, but just a means through which you access a state that is now more available, closer, and more integrated into your everyday experience. And perhaps the most important aspect of all this is the fact that this transformation does not depend on major external changes, complex knowledge, or elaborate practices, but on something extremely simple and accessible, which can be done at any time, in any place, without the need for preparation or special conditions. And it is precisely this simplicity that makes this practice so powerful, because it shows that what you are seeking may be much closer than you imagine, not as something that needs to be achieved, but as something that is already present, simply waiting to be recognized through your attention and your presence.